Hello and welcome to the Permaculture podcast where we talk about permaculture, people and projects. I'm your host Cormac Harkin, and today we have Mitch Rawlyk with us. Welcome, Mitch.
Howdy.
Thank you very much for joining us. Do you want to just give us a quick 30-second intro, please?
Oh yeah, for sure. As Cormac was saying, my name is Mitch. I live in the middle of nowhere in central Alberta, Canada. I am an earth systems scientist and a meteorologist and Permy. And my partner and I, we live out here on our homestead. It's about 23 acres where we've got chickens and ducks, our dairy cows at our neighbors because we weren't quite set up for winter watering because we're in the middle of nowhere, Canada. It's April 25th, but it's still basically winter. And we've got a huge garden, a couple of orchards, and we've been out here for about 4 or 5 years. And I suppose in my spare time, I develop software, mapping software for ideally regenerative landscape developers, permaculture designers, and people who want to build with the land rather instead of just on top of it. And that's me.
That's great. We'll get to all that in a minute. So I first came across you during the Verge Summit.
Oh, really? Which one?
I won a prize at Summit.
Did you?
It was one of the October. I can't remember what year it was now, but it was. I think it was during COVID. It was a really.
So that would have been that was the Hope, Knowledge, and a Plan one, probably.
Yeah, that was I really enjoyed that. I liked the way. Yeah, that was really good, and I liked too the way the things in between the talks was kept going.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes them summits I don't like where they just have a 15 and then they just disappear.
Yeah. those were huge days.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
So take us to the start. How did you first hear about permaculture, and how did you get into loving the way you do?
Yeah, for sure. So first, I actually heard about permaculture in my undergraduate degree, and one of my professors, she'd been talking. She's like, "Oh, and there's this thing called permaculture. I don't really know what it is." But I ended up looking that up and was really interested in it. My friend, she managed the community garden on campus, so I started getting a little bit involved in there. But I'll just backtrack a little bit. My first undergrad was in earth system science, and it was all these earthologies like geomorphology, hydrology, climatology, biogeography, sustainability studies, and they didn't really communicate with one another. I was very siloed. And basically at the end of my degree, I was given a piece of paper that was like, all right, you know about all the problems in the world. Good luck. And I was like, oh, awesome. Thanks for that. That's really cool. This is super empowering. And then what I ended up doing for work after that degree is I got a job cleaning toilets at the Lake Louise campground in Banff National Park, which was a beautiful place to work. I lived in a cabin in the middle of the woods, no cell service, no internet, no TVs or anything. So that was awesome, but I was cleaning toilets. And so I thought, okay, this isn't quite for me. And I ended up moving to New Zealand, and I did my master's down there in applied meteorology, which is basically just data science for weather. And I developed a proof of concept AI algorithm for predicting frost for the vineyards in central Otago. And while I was there, I was still getting I was getting really into food and getting a little bit more connected with farmers and like really getting an understanding of where my food was coming from. I hadn't quite started growing my own yet. I lived in a little apartment, so it was kind of tricky, and there was no sun. But I did almost every day get coffee from this little yellow caravan that was parked outside of campus. And it was run by a guy that was about the same age as I was. And we ended up chatting a bunch, and it became pretty clear that we were going to be friends. And one day I was going through this crazy soup phase where I was just making this really nutrient dense soup. And I brought him a cup of soup and a handwritten note that was like, hey, if you need help in the caravan, just let me know. I'd be happy to work here. And I ended up with a job, and he ended up becoming one of my best friends. And his dad had given him a copy of the first edition of the Permaculture Designer's Manual. And he lent that to me because the climate section in there was actually really, really good and distilled into really easy to understand chunks. And so it was almost written better than the textbooks that I was using for my master's thesis. So that was kind of like my first formal introduction into permaculture. I was reading the whole designer's manual. I was like, okay, this is so awesome. And then I finished up my master's. I moved up to Wellington, the capital of New Zealand, to be with my partner, where I got a little bit more into permaculture, just reading more about it and researching more about it. And what I actually really wanted to do was I wanted to go back to school and do civil engineering, but take a permaculture design course or a series of them beforehand, and then design cities in ways that were smart instead of how they are, which is arguably sometimes not that great. And a lot of times not that great. And I was seeking some advice on that. And I ended up actually reaching out to booking a consultation with a previous guest that you had, Rob Avis. And he was just like, no, don't go back to school. Don't, you've done your time. Don't do it. You don't need to go back to school. You've been busy enough. And like, what you know is well and truly like, you're good. Then COVID hit. I moved back to Canada. I was twiddling my thumbs in my parents' basement, just teaching myself Python. And from there, I emailed Rob and said, hey, do you know of any volunteer opportunities? And he said, yeah, sure. Come up to my farm. We just moved here last year. We're getting things set up. And so I went up there for 4 weeks, and then I left with a job, and then I was teaching in permaculture design courses. I was teaching the mapping and the climate sections. I was planning events like the Hope, Knowledge, and a Plan Summit, amongst tons of other things. And while I was up at Rob and Michelle's farm in May of 2021, Michelle said to me, hey, there's a property down the road for sale. You should go take a look at it. I was like, it's not really on the radar, but okay, sure. I'll go take a look-see. I drove past it, ended up talking to the owner, and I was like, oh my goodness, this is cool. So my girlfriend, Maddie, she was still in New Zealand. We had been doing long distance for I guess a little bit more than a year at that point. And it was decided she was going to be moving to Canada. And so I called her up and said, hey, do you want to be farmers? And she's just like, hell yeah, let's go. And so we put in an offer, went through. And next thing I knew, I was living in the middle of nowhere in Alberta. We had very little food growing experience. I had the kind of the theoretical knowledge of permaculture design, but not much of the practical stuff. And we just dove right into it. And as we were kind of chatting before we started recording here, it's just like, oh yeah, okay, one problem after the next, and we think you got it sussed, and then it's the next thing, and so it's been a lot of that. But I wouldn't change it for anything. It's been super, super fun, and we're now at the point where we're growing 80 to 90% of our food I mean, we still need to buy oil and salt and spices, and there are some times in winter where it's like, okay, an avocado or something green would be really, really nice instead of just eating squash, beans, and potatoes and meat, and like canned food or sauerkraut and kimchi. So we still do go to the grocery store. Sometimes when we go to the city, we'll pick up some stuff. But by and large, like we're like 80-90% local food. And if it's the meat, then we generally have a hand in that one bad day because we hang out with our neighbors who grow our meat, and then we grow our vegetables, and then we don't quite have fruit trees. Well, we have fruit trees, they're just not fruiting yet, but there's lots of berry bushes around, and we're growing mushrooms and all sorts of fun stuff like that.
Great stuff. That's quite a journey from
Yeah.
and 23 acres is a big jump to jump on the.
Yeah, I mean, it was the price was right for the land, and it was like, all right, cool, let's go actually try this out. And I mean, the 23 acres, about 13 of it is just forest, so a lot of it is just pasture. So we had to. It was a hobby golf course that was totally covered in Roundup before. And so we just kind of let it do its thing. We learned a lot in the process, especially with regards to like, when I first moved out here, it was like, oh yeah, we don't need to mow the grass. We'll just let it do its thing. But it's like, no, we learned that actually it needs to be managed. And because we don't have any grazing animals yet, it needed to be managed by mowing. And then once we got our dairy cow, Sweetie, on there, then the pasture just got so much better. We were doing rotational grazing with her. It's just like, you could just tell where she'd been was so much better.
So where do you start with 23 acres? What did you do? What baby? I think the thing is baby steps, isn't it?
Yeah.
How did you? I suppose how do you eat an elephant one piece at a time?
Yeah. Great question. I'd say the first step for us was actually I was talking with Maddie about this last night. The first mistake we made. I think Rob and Michelle, they were getting rid of some raspberry canes, or they were felling some trees and they were going to fall onto this raspberry patch that was just super overgrown. So we ended up helping remove some of these raspberries, and we ended up with, I don't know, something like 100 raspberry canes. And we were just like, all right, cool, we've got all these raspberry canes. Let's go around the perimeter of our pasture and just plant these raspberry canes in there and see how it goes. No plan, nothing. And I mean, I'm sure you can imagine how that ended up going. It was terrible. And then they were just like at the fringes of this pasture. And so, of course, next spring, my dad comes up and he's like, all right, I'll get on the mower. And he just mowed over all of these raspberry canes. And I was just like, all right, well, that was a dumb mistake. Should have thought about that. So I guess you start off by making a lot of mistakes, and that was definitely the first one. But we got it, like the annuals was really the first step for us. And there were a couple of raised beds at the home site. I'm like, all right, so this is just a natural point that we can build off of. So let's build our garden from there. So we expanded the annual system and planted our first couple of trees there. And it was that classic thing. Like, I'm really happy that I had a pretty good understanding of permaculture beforehand. I was like, okay, let's use this first year to make some observations. We're not going to do too much drastic stuff. So really all we did was plant a couple of trees in different spots just to see how they did in those spots, and then expanded the garden, which was a huge learning curve for us too, because we had never really, I mean, I had planted some potatoes, and before I had moved out here, I was renting a house in Calgary with some friends. And so I had planted some stuff in the backyard, just transplanted some seedlings and grew some potatoes. but that was really about it. It was really low maintenance. So that when we expanded the first year from just like the garden and having it go downhill a little bit, it was like, okay, well, one, how do we get rid of this grass? And then two, how do we ensure there's no flooding, the drainage is good. And that was just it was super fun, but it was a steep learning curve. And now we have, since in that first year, we probably 3x'd the growing space. And then the second year, we doubled that. And then last year, we doubled what we had previously doubled. So the growing space we have now is absolutely huge. But it seems like almost just the same amount of time to take care of things or like get it up to speed, because we know how to do these things. So the first step for us was annuals and just learning how to grow food in this ridiculous climate that we live in.
Yeah, so it's a pretty short season you have, isn't it? It's 3 months or something, is it even that?
Pretty much, yeah. So last year we had a frost. I think it was like 3 frosts, June 16th, 17th, 18th. Yeah. And then the first frost was mid-September. So it was basically 3 months, right? And
yeah,
Maddie and we're always kind of joking about why we live here, because it's winter for 7 months, and then spring and autumn for like 3 to 4 weeks on either side is super short. And then it's just like, okay. And then our entire garden is at risk of either huge hailstorms or wildfires. Like, why do we live here?
So why do you live there?
It's a great question. We will be moving to New Zealand at some point in the next, I anticipate 2 or 3 years. Where
so
it's a little bit more temperate. And
yeah, I think it's more similar to the climate where I am here in Ireland.
Yeah. And whereabouts are you in Ireland?
I'm in the northern Ireland, right up the top.
Okay.
So we get years where we may have a ground frost at night, but the ground never freezes.
Mm-hmm.
And there's some years we don't get where it'll freeze at night, but it's fully thawed the next day. Yeah. And all years we get, you might get a few weeks of snow. So that's the worst. So it's not too bad. Our problem here is light. Yeah, because we're so far north. I think I'm further north than you are.
For real?
Yeah, our climate's regulated by the Atlantic, so the water basically gets heated in Florida, and then it's shipped up here, but then heats us, and keeps us warm. I think we're level with Nova Scotia.
Yeah.
So, but it's just that it's that temperate. So, yeah, did you do a mainframe design for your property, or did you just sort of even on a napkin, or even on the back of your head? Or did you just sort of?
Yeah, so what I did is what did I do? So thinking back on how we actually designed this. It was a little bit of intuition and just like actually observing, and then going from there. A little bit of mainframe design in terms of like doing the water, the access, and the structures. So we set up rainwater harvesting tanks the first year, and then I'll just say it was quite easy to get really excited and planting trees and whatnot. So I'm currently designing around the trees, which has been fine. Like the contours actually work well with it. So can't see it over here, but we've got a very large rainwater harvesting tank right here that had been set up the first year, and that's harvesting water off of basically 2/3 of our north facing roof. Fills up really quickly. And so now what we're doing is I had sillily, if you're listening to this, do your water first. Planted the trees out here. We have a cool little sun trap area, and I'd mapped out where the trees were going to go. And I used a little bit of Google Earth Pro for that, and just for the conceptual. And we planted, so we've got apples, cherries, plums, pears, Siberian peach. And we had planted those all quite well spaced, so that if they were to actually reach maturity, they wouldn't be touching one another. And then understories around that, we've got black currants and hascaps and some flowers and other herbs underneath those trees. But then when it came like, okay, well, what are we actually going to do with the water that's overflowing from that rainwater tank? It's like, okay, well, I wanted to set up a system so it cascades through this well-sloped food forest. And so then it was like, okay, well, now I've got to work around these trees. So what we did there, or we're doing now, is we've dug some swales, and I am setting up a contraption so that the overflow from the rainwater tank goes into the swale, but it has weeping tile in it. So it'll be like an underground swale. And then that'll cascade through 2 more swales. And then when that overfills, fill up a pond at the bottom of that system, which I can look at now, and is holding water decently well. So that's pretty exciting. It's captured all the snow melt and whatnot.
Great stuff.
Yeah, super exciting. And then that's, I suppose, mainframe-ish, and then we'll do the access through all of that, like after the fact, when it's time to beautify it.
Yeah, no, that's great. Now we're going to take it back. We should have probably started there. Your PDC. Do you want to tell us about where you did your PDC?
Yeah, so I did the PDC at Verge.
Yeah. And that was in person, online?
It was a bit of a mix, because it was during COVID. And so I think the first couple of sessions were in person, and then they moved to online, just because that was the nature of the time that we were living in it, 2020.
Yeah. No, it's just interesting, all the different styles of PDC. Suppose with Verge too, it's only up the street from you, but you weren't living there at the time?
Well, the PDC was held in Calgary, so I was living in Calgary at that time. So the in-person was, and then it moved to online in the more winter months. I think it started in September sometime, and that was in person, and then it was online.
So you touched on it earlier there about the permaculture manual was actually more accurate than your textbooks.
Yeah, it was a lot easier to understand, and it just kind of clicked in a way. I was like, oh, cool, that makes sense. So when I'm looking at these weather charts and looking at the broader scale things, a lot of the things that were in the PDC or in the Permaculture Designer's Manual was like, oh, that's what that is. That's so interesting.
And how did you feel that brought together all them ologies that you were on about earlier? Did it make them make all more sense of it as well?
Yeah, because I think intrinsically it was like, okay, cool, I've got this certificate or degree that's like, you know what the problems are in the world, but they're not talking to one another. And I was always felt this kind of cognitive dissonance. It was like, this isn't enough, this isn't enough, this isn't enough, right? And then when I did get into permaculture, it was like, oh, well, this is tying in all of these ologies into one thing, and the end result is beyond sustainability. It's actually regeneration and really tasty food that's better for you. So it's like, all right, cool. I now have an opportunity to apply all of my ologies into tasty potatoes, which happen to be my favorite food. Like, it's a win-win.
Yeah. And then do you work as a meteorologist still now, or?
Kind of. Not, I wouldn't say I work as one. I do like community service as one. Right. So I'm always the one that's, especially in the summer when there are hailstorms, I'm the one that's in the community group chat being like, hey, everyone, like, the hail's coming, expect it in about half an hour. or if there's like a heat wave or any sort of adverse weather thing, then I'll be in the community group chat talking about it, because I have 2 weather stations here that let me know how far away lightning is, which is really, really handy. And so if I get a lightning notification, it's like, okay, cool, bring up the radar. I'll do a screen recording and send that off to the community. And then I do work from time to time with a meteorologist in New Zealand, and his specialty is frost forecasting. And so I have like the proof of concept of that, my master's thesis. Like, it's basically, it could be operational, but it's just, it takes so much time to do that, right? So it's short answer is no. I am not working as a meteorologist, other than kind of for myself, because it's actually one of the more handy skills to have while you're homesteading. Because it's operationally speaking, it's like, okay, well, let's get as much work done in these next 3 days as we can, because we've got a really good weather window, and then it's going to turn to crap. So that has been super, super handy for me. It's just like, operationally speaking, it's like, okay, cool.
Right, so you just get the head down because you know you're stuck inside for a few days.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, this is the time to do this work,
Yeah.
or not. Sometimes it's like, okay, we've got these. Let's just say, for example, we've got these trees that we need to plant, but it's going to be really dry. We're going to have winds from the southeast. We should just keep them shaded and moist somewhere, because if we move them now, they're just going to get way too stressed out.
Yeah, no, that's really good that you can bring that in.
Mm-hmm.
And you do a lot of mapping as well.
Yeah.
You've what I say, was it a product service?
Yes. Yeah, it's a bit of both. So I've since left Verge. I left Verge/Fifth World about a year ago now, to do my own thing. And what I'm doing now is I'm working with permaculture designers, homesteaders, regenerative real estate development companies to map out their potential sites or their sites, to give them a little bit more intel, especially on water, is where I've been mostly focused in the last year or so, because that's obviously the one thing that's most important to life on Earth is water. And I really wanted to provide solutions regarding that. And that was definitely inspired a little bit in part by taking the water stories course last year, Zach Weiss's water stories, which
I'd love to take that course. I just don't have the resources at the minute.
Yeah, it's intense, and there's a lot of homework. And I think, like, for me as the Earth system scientist, permaculture designer, and programmer, it was very much so. I have a list of questions of a landscape that I would really like to know. So how can I understand those and get those answers really, really quickly? Especially like if we're going to be moving to New Zealand in the next couple of years. I mean, it's going to take a little bit of time. Land's fairly expensive there, but I would love to be able to assess a potential property really quickly. Like, okay, this is a fit, this isn't a fit. And so how can I get those answers really quickly? And so I just developed the solution for me to get those answers really quickly. And it turns out that a lot of other people also want those answers really quickly. And so what I'm doing now is, providing people with those mapping solutions. And one thing that I'm working on right now is a landscape literacy workbook, which is I'm basically trying to empower people with the knowledge that I've gained through earth system science and permaculture design into a workbook. So they actually have to work through a terrain analysis with these exercises that guide them through like what I have learned to look for. So I'm really excited about that.
Do you have a name for that, or the system? Not the workbook, the mapping thing, the software.
Landscope.
Landscope.
Yeah.
And yeah, so is that for me as a designer or me as a client? So as a designer, but I offer that service to my client through yourself.
So yeah, that's actually a tricky thing that I'm learning about the messaging of products and marketing and whatnot. Like we were saying, just one problem after the next, because it is very widely valuable to a lot of different people. So the people that I'm serving right now, they are independent property owners who just want a map of their farm or homestead, and then I'm working with permaculture consultancies who are using these maps to educate and communicate their designs to their clients so that they understand it. I have basically programmed it so that it's really easy to use and you're getting all this really good information that's visually like, okay, I understand because it's on a map. Like the map is a non-linear form of communication that it's like, okay, I can see what you're saying and why you're saying it. And then I have, I was saying, a regenerative real estate development company who's using the maps and myself as an interpreter of these landscapes to decide if that's a suitable place to actually make an investment into a property that will then do regenerative. They're basically just trying to change the way in which communities are developed so that there are more like you're building with the land and not on top of it. And so keeping water in mind and keeping community in mind and growing food there as well. And then I have another client and she is, she's developing courses on resilient home development. And she emailed me the other day with a use case that I had, it's like, whoa, I hadn't even done that before. And she was using the contour maps and Google Earth Pro and to wiggle through not wiggle through, that's not the right word, but to navigate some sticky county regulations in Colorado, because I guess they have really strict regulations on you're building, if from the road, you can't build anything that would go above a ridge line. And so she's using the mapping packages in Google Earth Pro and some of the tips and tricks I taught her with Google Earth Pro to basically say, no, we're good. Like this, we're not breaking any regulations here. Like we're well within the code.
Class. Yeah, because for me as a designer, I'm trying to experiment with basically a business model where a lot of stuff's outsourced. Where before I would have done the mapping. Mm-hmm. So I would have done the site survey, I would have done the mapping, I would have done the contour generation, then I would have done the blueprint, the design, and then it's like, how do you scale that up? So it's like scaling it out by outsourcing it. So you do the site visit, then you outsource the mapping with a mapping technology. So I'm trying to create a workflow basically that I'm trying to outsource as much as I can.
Yeah.
So that I can make a bigger impact. Well, try and make an impact anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the thing is like, I kind of realized, okay, I've got this it was funny enough. I was last summer, I had been building, an Etsy store of all things. Because I was taking what I first taught myself Python with, which was, the visualization of weather events. And so what I've been doing was, if my friend had a birthday, I would download the global temperature patterns for that day, centered over that location, and annotate it like this was the weather on when you were born, and get that on a t-shirt or a poster print and send that off to them. And then that kind of turned into 3D topography prints. And I'd been posting on my Instagram one of these 3D topography prints. And a friend of mine, he said, hey, like this area is really close to where I've been brought on as a permaculture designer. Can you make a mapping package for me? It's like, I could try. So then I just got really, really into the whole idea of, okay, cool. Like, how can I help designers with this information really quickly? And even like white label it. So that's something I do is I provide some designers who opt into that is like, it's totally branded for you. Like, this is your mapping package. So it's just like you have a very cohesive experience in terms of like your customers are engaged with your brand for that whole experience.
Yeah, right. So that would suit someone like for me then who wants to. I just add mapping and nobody knows it goes to you. It's just me and my name's or Fine Permaculture's on it. And that's it.
Yeah, exactly. And then I mean, right now it's set up so there's a little bit of back and forth. But say you needed a mapping package. If I was at my computer, the data was available, I would be able to get you that mapping package in 20 minutes.
Wow.
Because the whole thing is automated.
Yeah, that's great. So it's scalable for yourself as well.
Yeah, exactly. Because that was big for me. It's like I've got a homestead, I've got a farm, I've got a baby on the way. How can I make this quick? You know, I gotta be able to deliver value really, really quickly. And that was it. I was like, okay, let's automate my answers.
I'll leave the link in the description. Just make sure you said you see it in the podcast.
Yeah, so absolutely.
Yeah, so you offer design services as well?
I haven't. I suppose I don't offer it, but I've never been asked to. I've asked to like provide my input on designs, but I haven't done designs myself other than like when I did my PDC and for this property. It's something that I would love to get into, but I'm almost thinking that it might be like for a more sustainable business model for me might be that I grow a catalog of designers where if someone they say they want to map their property, but then they want something designed. It's like, okay, well, I would rather send you to someone in your area who knows the nuances of that geographical and climatological context to help you better than I ever could.
Yeah, that's I'm focusing on Ireland at the minute to try and build up the business here. And although if a remote design comes in, I either send that to the likes of Permaculture Canada or maybe Fifth World or Jamin at Tayag. There's plenty of people out there that I can subcontract that work out there, or just a clear affiliate. So I think that's where my thinking's going at the minute. It's more local. I've done over 20 remote designs. For me, anyway, I need to learn, get more hands in the dirt, and then that work is give it to someone who's set up for it better and who's closer. I think it's that's the way my thinking's going. It can change again.
Oh yeah, it always does. New information comes in, and it's like, oh wait, never mind. I'm doing this.
Yeah, still trying to figure it out. Yeah, what else have we got there? Is there anything we haven't touched on?
You're not too sure.
So your animals on the homestead, what did you bring in first?
First was 6 chickens. 6 chickens was great starting point. And then don't know if you heard about chicken math, but all of a sudden there was 30.
I'm lucky. I had 3 at the most. I think I had 4 at one stage, and then it was anything else. There was no need for it because I was generating enough compost from the chickens. I was getting enough eggs, so that there wasn't. Chicken math was restricted by itself. No, there just wasn't any room. But I can imagine if I had 23 acres, how many chickens I'd end up with. Have you seen the I think it's a TikTok or something where where all the chickens come out of the hill.
No.
1,000 chickens. The woman comes out and gets in China or somewhere. She comes out to feed the chickens and she whistles. And like all she sees
hilarious.
Hundreds of chickens coming out of the bush.
It is kind of like that. We've got, I don't know, it's got to be close to 30 chickens and then 4 ducks. But it was, we just finished a new chicken coop last year. That was south facing, has a window on the south, and is fully insulated. So that was great. We kind of defaulted to the structures that were already here when we first started. And I was like, oh, well, there's this old generator shed. Let's just cut a hole in the wall and then put the chickens in there. There was lots of trees. They were really happy until it was wintertime, when it got down to -40 for like 2 weeks. And that it was really shaded in there. It was almost like the coldest spot. So we had to move. At this point, we probably only had about 15 chickens. We're like, all right, we're moving 15 chickens into the garage, which wasn't fun for anyone. So like, okay, we got to build a new coop. So I finished that just in the nick of time last year. It would have been November. And so, it's on a ridge, south facing, and it's way, way nicer now. But we're just in the process of moving them into our chicken tractor. It's more of a chicken tank. So my dad and we built a chicken tractor last May. My favorite part about it is that it's made out of materials that would have otherwise gone to the landfill. One of my good friends, he works in construction, and they were just finishing up a job. He's like, hey, I've got all this material. It's going to go to the landfill. Do you want me to just bring it up to yours? Like, yes, please. So that's been hugely helpful. It's just like, oh man, I can't believe that much would go to a landfill. It was just like perfectly good 2x4s, like even like 4x12s, like huge pieces of lumber. It's like, oh my goodness, this is gold.
Yeah, I suppose somebody has to pay to store that somewhere.
Yeah.
So it's costing them. If you have a spare bit of yard, well, it's
yeah. So I just paid for the trailer rental, and he brought up all this stuff. It was like awesome. So we built this chicken tractor. I'd be more inclined to call it a chicken tank. It's absolutely huge. It's way too big. But one of those things that you learn. But we're just getting them in the perennial part of our garden right now. So they're going to be cleaning that up for the next little bit. And then we'll get them. We basically designed it so it's almost like a spiral around. It's a largely south-facing orchard bit. So we planted, again, apples, pears, plums, cherries, Stefan's and Cognac style, whereas none of those types of trees were touching one another. So an apple's never beside an apple. It's always beside something else, just to limit the spread of disease. So what we do is we put the chickens and we basically go around this spiral with them, and they take care of the understory, all of the things that come up in there, and they just have a really good time fertilizing and eating. And it was really interesting, actually. A really interesting observation that I made was that we didn't till those areas, but we did use a sod stripper. And then what came up from wherever we did the sod stripping was dandelions, instead of like really more aggressive types of weeds. And it was just this spiral of dandelions, like yellow flowers. So I was like, okay, cool. One, that was really pretty. And then two, because they have such deep tap roots and they're bringing up so much calcium, the chickens go to town on these dandelions, and their eggs are just so much harder and better because they're getting so much calcium.
Class, now, if someone wants to see your property, are you online or?
I am online. My most active, I'd say, platform right now is LinkedIn, where I talk mostly about, I try really hard to focus on solutions. So whenever there's a nasty event, then I'll just generally talk about, okay, well, if we had formed our landscapes a little bit differently, this could have possibly been navigated a bit better. But I am going to be doing some more YouTube stuff. It's pretty fun. So I'm getting set up for that, and I'll be starting to film some more stuff in the next couple of weeks. I got back surgery actually about 5 weeks ago. So I'm still recovering from that, but once I've got to follow up with my surgeon on next Tuesday. So I'm hoping that he'll give me the thumbs up to go out and do more things.
I did see Lindsay, what is it? I think you have a site.
Yeah.
You have somebody up there.
Yeah,
so
actually,
I can put a link in that description for that.
Yeah, that's actually a tour of all the systems that I've just been talking about, including our funky fungi forest, which I love. That's my favorite place, where we're growing lots of gourmet mushrooms.
Lovely. Yeah. So that link will be in the description, plus any other link, social media links as well. Your LinkedIn will be there too.
My LinkedIn, I'm not as active on Instagram. It's just really hard when you're a one-person team to be active on tons of different platforms. So I'm just trying to stick to one, get those systems down, and then move to another one. And so next up will be YouTube. So it's just Mitch Rawlyk on YouTube.
That's great. Yeah, I've jumped about the platforms myself. I think I'm on all of them. But the podcast, it's just been easy. Just the YouTube channel, and then the podcast platforms. Where everything else, it just I don't know. It's just developing strategies for each, and then it's like yourself. I think's very good at LinkedIn. Rob's very good at LinkedIn. I'm not so good at LinkedIn because I don't know. By the time I sit down and think and I'd say formulate a response, it's like
yeah,
I just move on. I think it's for the more brainiacs on LinkedIn.
It's tricky. Like the imposter syndrome was so real when I was starting on LinkedIn. I mean, it still is. But it's like everyone has, like, even yourself, you've got really valuable tidbits of information in that noggin of yours. And it's a solution for someone, for sure.
Yeah. I definitely think LinkedIn, I think Instagram's crowded, especially. It's a lot of stuff. I don't know. I haven't figured it out yet, but what I think is LinkedIn is very much towards it's getting bigger, LinkedIn.
Mm-hmm.
I think in terms of permaculture, and it's more conversational on LinkedIn, whereas Instagram's like, look at my pretty flowers. Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
There's a lot of bigger discussions happening over, and then a lot of the stuff like greenwashing's been tackled over in LinkedIn, where people are actually calling it out, saying, "Oh, that's rubbish." What I came across today as well was farm washing. I don't know if you're aware of that term.
So I mean, I can guess. I haven't heard it, but I can guess what it means.
So basically, Tesco's here in the UK were caught making up farm brands.
Mm-hmm.
It was
like making them up willy nilly.
Yeah, I was just putting them on products. So it was like I don't know, like Mitch's Ranch, and then putting it like a wee chicken on it, making it look, and then it wasn't actually a farm brand; it was just made up. The farm doesn't exist.
They're trying to make it look like mom and pop shop.
Yeah, support British farmers. Support this brand. It's local, but it was in fact it wasn't a farm, doesn't even exist.
Yeah.
Now some of them exist, but the most of them don't. It was just like it was like they're trying to make it illegal here, but I think it's right because the natural thing is you think it's a brand. And, there's a wee, you say mom and pop farm will help them out, help local farmers, and that's just made up.
Yeah,
no such farm exists. Yeah, so I think LinkedIn's definitely got a lot of potential, especially selling. You say, you're providing it to businesses. That's right. Like Vindy goes more towards businesses because they've got a lot more money and they make a bigger impact. And if they're prepared to greenwash it, well, maybe they're prepared to do it right.
Yeah.
If you're going to go to all that effort and spend that money, why not make a proper impact instead of pretending to?
Yeah. Yeah. LinkedIn is. I was really actually blown away by the amount of people who are more like regeneratively inclined on there.
Yeah.
It's like, oh wow, there's a lot of people who these messages are resonating with. This is really, and it like provides a little bit of hope too. It's like, because it's easy to go through the day and be like, oh, nobody's thinking about these types of things, when in fact, actually, there's a lot of people thinking about these things, and there's a lot of people actually working on it.
Yeah. The only note to make on that is some of the language. It's a pile of waffle.
Oh yeah. It's
co-facilitating, co-creating, facilitating natural speech or whatever the frick it is.
Yeah.
Go on, just tell me what you do.
Yeah.
I don't understand it.
Yeah. It's well, that's the biggest. I think the biggest thing and the biggest learning curve for me is like, okay, there's writing, and then there's like writing for social media, and they're two very different things.
Yeah. Mitch, thank you very much.
Thank you, Cormac.
It's been a pleasure. I'm sure we'll hear from you again.
Oh yeah.
You're very welcome to join us for the roundtables when we have them.
Oh, when are they?
Well, I just organize them at the minute. It's ad hoc. So it'll just be like, I'll send an email out. I want to do one on mapping. So basically trying to gather all together the resources of mapping, because for me, since I started, it was like the contour generator. This is only 2 years ago. Very basic. Now it's a lot of people are providing LiDAR, more advanced mapping services, and just getting a chat around, just basically sharing what people are doing.
Yeah.
And where it's heading. I think it's probably heading towards like the like the gaming.
It keeps coming up. It keeps coming up.
And someone's going to break that nut where it's, I can't mind now, as an Unreal Engine, things like that.
Yeah.
I did mess about with it, and you can actually use ChatGPT to sort of describe an apple guild, and could they build it in Unreal Engine? I got some code there. I don't know how. It was one of them things I was messing about. I never got to follow it through.
Yeah. Well, the craziest thing to me is that like there's Microsoft Flight Simulator, which is basically a digital twin of the entire Earth, but it's for flying around planes. Like, why can we not do this for like Microsoft Regenerative Farm Simulator? You know, it's
and can you imagine handing a customer, here's your land, LiDAR imaging, or what do you call the other ones? Photo microscopy, is it, or something? Photo. But they put together all the photographs.
LiDAR does orthomosaics.
Yeah, that's the thing. So, and then here's your land, and here's how it's going to look in a year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. And if you do X, and can you imagine the power of that? They sell regeneration on its own, not necessarily individual services, but just here's how beautiful it can look.
Yeah.
And then even for designers, they say, well, here's your design. Does it make any sense?
Yeah.
No, you can gain a lot more understanding. And I think it's only a matter of time before something like that comes out.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think I met some guys who are working on something along those lines, but they're still just trying to figure it out. But they've been doing some amazing work there.
Yeah. Well, we'll get you back on for that chat anyway. And
perfect.
Send you an email. Mitch, thank you very much.
Thanks, Cormac.
For those listening, the links are in the description as well. And you can give us a like and a subscribe. And if you have any comments for Mitch or myself, please put them in the comment section. Or if you're listening on a podcast, if you can give us a review on podcast as well, that would be really nice. I forget to ask for these things because we enjoy myself that much.
Yeah.
And if you like this podcast, please click on the link above. And I'll give you another podcast. I don't know which one. Cheers, Mitch. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Cormac. Have a good one.